Welcome to Mishna study with Masechet Demai, Perek He Mishna Gimel. Over here in this Mishnah, we're going to speak about if a person buys bread from a baker, multiple pieces of bread, is he allowed to separate all the terumah in one shot? Or does he need to separate it from each piece of bread that he buys? Right, those are the two extremes. We'll see how this mahloket pans out. הלוקח מן הנחתום, מעשר מן החמה על הסוננת, ומן הסוננת על החמה, אפילו מתפוסים הרבה. דברי רבי מאיר. רבי יהודה אוסר, שאני אומר, חיטים של אמש היו משל אחד, ושל יום היו משל אחר. רבי שמעון אוסר בתרומת המעשר, ומתיר בחלה. So if a person buys from a baker, he's allowed to separate maaser from the hot bread over the cold bread, and the cold bread over the hot bread. And even if it's from many different molds, right? A tefus is a mold, right? So they used to make the breads, they used to bake breads in different shapes, different molds. And we could assume that it's all coming from the same baker. That's according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda is oser. Yehuda says, no, you're not allowed to. Right? Now the question is, when are you not allowed to? So Harambam explains, even if they are in the same mold, right? We worry that the wheat that was used for one bread may have been an older wheat, and for the second bread was made from a newer wheat. And we know there's a rule, a general rule, you're not allowed to be ma'aser from hadash and yashan and hadash, right? Something from the last season, you can't separate ma'aser, using that for something that just grew now, and vice versa, right? The ruling is every year you need to separate certain terumot and ma'aserot, right? There's also different people we give to, right? On the first, second, fourth, and fifth year, right, we're going to give Ma'aser Shani, whereas on the third and the sixth year, we have Ma'aser Ani, right? So even every year has different people we even give to. And accordingly, we're not allowed to separate Terumot and Ma'asrot from one year onto the next. And what are we worried about over here? We're worried about, Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda Oser, he says you're not allowed, even if it's from the, Harambam says, even if it's from the same mold, right? By the way, Harambam says this, I know Tosafot, is holek. Tosafot says, no, we're not talking about it here if it's from the same mold. It would say Rabbi Yehuda would agree to Rabbi Meir if it's from the same mold. But Rambam says Rabbi Yehuda is oser, even if it's from the same mold. Shani Omer, I say what? Hitim shel emesh hayu mishel echad, right? Yesterday's hitim, right? Yani the cold bread was from someone. V'shel yom hayu mishel acher, and today's is from someone else, and therefore it's maybe two different seasons. Right? I'm separating Terumot and Ma'aserot from one season onto the next, and that is not allowed. Right? I would just point out over here that Rambam's worried about separating from Yashan on Hadash and Hadash and Yashan. Bartenura explains differently, and he's saying the wheat, and Bartenura explains that the wheat that was bought yesterday may be from someone who separated Ma'aser, and today's maybe from someone who didn't, and you're separating Demai on Vadai and Vadai on Demai. Right, which is interesting, a different way of understanding. Rambam explains, no, it's from one season onto the next. Now, Rabbi Shimon comes, and Rabbi Shimon has a split reading, or somewhere in between. He says, Rabbi Shimon says it's asur in Terumat Ma'aser, right? When it comes to separating Terumat Ma'aser, that 1%, right? The terumah from the Ma'aser Rishon that we were giving to the Levi, that you're not allowed to do. But when it comes to Halah, you are allowed. You are allowed to separate from the Yashan onto the Hadash, and Hadash onto Yashan. Halacha is like Rabbi Shimon.